Okay, Torah portion Nitzavim then. Nitzavim comes from the verb natzav, which means to stand. It's not the word that's commonly used to stand up though. It's used like when Yahovah is standing at the top of the ladder in Jacob's ladder. It means to stand, to be established basically. So the verb's natzav. You'd have a nitzav would be someone who is doing that verb, and nitzavim are people, ones who are doing that verb. So really it means ones who stand. And in this we're going to be looking at the heart. What comes across in this Torah portion is that it's all about your heart and how your heart relates to Yahovah. And in fact, all of the scriptures is about that. And I'm going to draw out from the other scriptures just this theme that it's all about your heart. And we're going to be looking in the first part about covenants, what it is to be in covenant with Yahovah. People misunderstand what the covenants are. The Abrahamic covenant, the old covenant, the new covenant. What are they? When did we become betrothed to Yeshua? When did that actually happen? What's that about? Okay, so understanding those things, we can understand why it is that our heart is so important. In the second part, we're going to look at what it is for Yahovah to have circumcised our heart, what it is to have the law written on your heart. And then in the third part, we're going to look at what it is for your heart to go astray after idols, perhaps idols that you've set up in your heart. Deuteronomy 29 verse 10 says, all of you are standing, all of you are Nitzavim, all of you are standers, or ones who stand this day before Yehovah your Elohim, your leaders, your tribes, your elders, your officers, all the men of Yisrael. Okay, so all the people who are in charge of the nation, who are going to be judging how things go, who are going to be enforcing the Torah, and all of the nation, all of you are here. None of you have an excuse. Your little ones, your wives, and your sojourner who is in the midst of your camp, from the one who cuts your wood to the one who draws your water, that you should enter into covenant with Yehovah your Elohim, and into his oath which Yehovah your Elohim makes with you today. Okay, so this covenant that they're entering into is a renewal of the covenant that was established at Mount Sinai. This is a renewed covenant. People say that the new covenant should actually be the renewed covenant, but we're going to have a look at that. But this is a renewal, okay? What we're going to see is that when a covenant is established, blood is shed. It has to be the blood of the covenant sacrifice. A sacrifice has to be made. Blood has to be shed in order for a covenant to be established. So there's no bloodshed here. Okay, this isn't a new covenant being made with them. This is a renewal. And we see, in fact, that the kings, if you read through the book of Kings, that the covenant is actually renewed all the way through Scripture. They make a renewal. They enter into covenant again. And into his oath, which Yehovah your Elohim makes with you today, that he may establish you today for a people unto himself, and that he may be unto you as Elohim, as he has spoken to you, and as he has sworn to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov. Exodus 19, we see the beginning of when they're going to establish the first covenant. Now if you diligently obey my voice and shall cherish my covenant, then you shall be my treasured possession above all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. And we've looked at the fact that this is what Yehovah is doing by setting his people apart. He's making them a treasured possession unto himself. I want you to look at the language that's used here. Okay, this is the language of lovers. Okay, this is Yahovah saying, you will be my treasured possession, just as we read through. You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a set-apart nation. Those are the words which you are to speak to the children of Israel. Okay, you will be. This word is kohanim. Like Nitzavim is those who do the verb natzav. Kohanim is those who do the verb kahan. And to kahan is to represent a third party. So what he's saying is, look, if you obey my voice and you cherish my covenant, then you will be a kingdom of those who represent me as the third party to the world by my word. And a set apart nation, those are the words which you are to speak to the children of Israel. And Moshe came and called for the elders of the people and set before them all these words which Yehovah commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that Yehovah has spoken, we will do. So Moshe brought back the words to the people to Yehovah. Okay, so Yehovah has said, if you diligently obey my voice, this is part of what they're agreeing to do. They're agreeing in this first covenant to obey his voice. Okay, they don't know what he's going to say to them, but they've agreed that they will obey his voice. Later in Exodus 24, we see this. It says, and Moshe came and related to the people all the words of Yehovah and all the judgments. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which Yehovah has spoken, we will do. Okay, so this is after Torah portion Mishpatim, which is judgments or right rulings. Okay, it's how he sees justice. So they've said, we will obey everything that he tells us. Then next, he tells them all of his judgments, how they are to do justice. And they say, we'll obey all of that as well. Then they enter into covenant with him. Moshe wrote down all the words of Yehovah and rose up early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and 12 standing columns for the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of bulls to Yehovah. And Moshe took half the blood and put it in basins, and half the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the hearing of the people, and they said, all that Yehovah has spoken, we will do and obey. So what had he spoken? He said, you must obey all of my words. Everything that I say to you, you must obey. Then he tells them his mishpatim, his judgments, and they say, we'll do that. They've entered into covenant here, and the covenant is that they will obey his voice. People will say that the book of the covenant and the book of the law are separated from one another, and that's not really an argument that I want to get into at the moment. But the covenant and the law are separate. Okay, the covenant is an agreement to follow the law. Okay, I think it's pretty obvious from Scripture that the book of the covenant and the book of the law are one and the same. Okay, but the covenant and the law are different. In the new covenant, we've got the law written on our hearts. So it's the same law. His law never changes. In the old covenant, we will obey and do what he says to do. In the new covenant, he says he makes it with people who have the law written on their hearts. Okay, so they agree to the covenant at this point. Next we see Moshe took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, see, the blood of the covenant which Yehovah has made with you concerning all these words. So notice, when a covenant is made, there is the blood of the covenant. Okay, so this is the blood of the covenant. And Moshe went up also Aharon, Nadav, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and they saw the Elohim of Israel, and under his feet like a paved work of sapphire stone, and like the heavens for brightness. Yet he did not stretch out his hands against the chiefs of the children of Israel, and they saw Elohim, and they ate and drank. And Yehovah said to Moshe, come up to me on the mountain and be there while I give you tablets of stone and the Torah and the command which I have written to teach them. Okay, so they've said everything that he said we will do. He says you need to obey my voice. And now, after they've agreed to this and they've made the covenant, he says, now come up and I'm going to tell you the Torah and the command that you are to teach them. So again, the covenant is an agreement to do these things. A lot of people, or some people who believe all of this order of Melchizedek stuff, they'll cut it off there and they'll say, no, the covenant was just to keep his judgments, just to keep his mishpatim. But the very next thing he says after they enter covenant is, now come up. Okay, it's not after the golden calf that he says, come up and I'll teach you the Torah. Right after they make the covenant, he says, now you'll come up and I'll tell you what you are to obey. Deuteronomy 26:16-19, and says, today Yehovah your Elohim is commanding you to do these laws and judgments, and you have cherished and done them with all your heart. And this is going to be the theme throughout this Torah portion. It's the theme throughout Scripture, but with all your heart and with all your soul. You have today caused Yehovah to promise to be your Elohim. What does this sound like to you? Okay, you've caused him to promise to be your Elohim. He will be your husband and you will be his lawfully wedded wife. Okay? And to walk in his ways and cherish his laws and his commands and his judgments and to obey his voice. And Yehovah has caused you to promise today to become his people, a treasured possession as he has spoken to you, and to cherish all his commands, so as to set you high above all nations which he's made for praise and for a name and for esteem, and for you to be a set apart people to Yehovah your Elohim, as he has spoken. So this, and we'll look at scriptures which show this, but this is them entering into betrothal, marriage with Yehovah. This is when he takes Israel to be his wife. Okay, we saw a couple of weeks ago that when a man sleeps with a woman who is betrothed, it is said that he has slept with another man's wife, even though she's only betrothed at that point. At betrothal, the woman becomes the wife. Ezekiel 16:7-8 says, I have let you grow like a plant in the field, Yehovah speaking to Israel, and you are grown and are great, and you come in the finest ornaments. Breasts were formed and your hair grew, and you were naked and bare. Again I passed by you and looked upon you and saw that your time was the time of love. I spread my skirt over you and covered your nakedness. Okay, he gave us the Torah. Cover the fact that we're naked before him. We can clothe ourselves in robes of righteousness. I swore an oath to you, entered into a covenant with you, and you became mine. This is the covenant that happened at Sinai. It's a marriage covenant. Hebrews 8:7-10 says, for if that first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. Okay, so this first covenant which is spoken of is not the first covenant that Yehovah makes with anyone. First covenant he made was with Abraham. Okay, this is the first marriage covenant where Israel became married to Yehovah. If it had been faultless, no place would have been sought for a second. Why would any place have been sought for a second? The problem is, they went and they committed adultery against him. Okay, it's all terms of a husband and a wife. They went and committed adultery by having idols in their hearts. Okay, no place would have been sought for a second. For finding fault with them, he says, see, the days are coming, says Yehovah, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah a new covenant. And people can debate linguistically whether if you change the word slightly it would mean renewed. If you put in the Hebrew, you put different vowel pointings, it would need renewed. But it's not, it's new. We know that it's new because it was established with new blood, with a new sacrifice. It cannot be the old covenant. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mitzrayim, because they did not continue in my covenant and I disregarded them, says Yehovah. And we'll see in the third part about how he divorced them and exactly what his reasoning was for divorcing them and how that relates to their hearts and how it relates to their relationship as husband and wife. Because this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yehovah, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts. I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Okay, I will be their husband, and they will be my wife. Isaiah 54:4-14 says, do not fear, for you are not put to shame, nor hurt, you are not humiliated. For the shame of your youth you forget, and you do not remember the reproach of your widowhood anymore. This is speaking to the house of Israel in the dispersion. Okay? Prophesying that they will come back to Yehovah. It says throughout the passage, basically, they'll forget who Yehovah is, but it's okay because he's going to gather them back to himself. For your maker is your husband. Yehovah Zevaot is his name, and the set apart one of Yisrael is your redeemer. He is called the Elohim of all the earth. For Yehovah has called you like a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit like a wife of youth when you were refused, declares your Elohim. For a little while I have forsaken you, but with great compassion I do gather you. Okay, so he had actually divorced them. We've seen this problem before. When he divorces them and they go and become another man's, according to the Torah, then he cannot take them back. But he's promising here, he's saying that for a little while I've forsaken you, but with great compassion I do gather you. In an overflow of wrath I hid my face from you for a moment, but with everlasting kindness I have loved you, says Yehovah your Redeemer. For this is the waters of Noah to me, in that I have sworn that the waters of Noah would never again cover the earth. So I have sworn not to be wroth with you, nor to rebuke you. For though the mountains be removed and the hills be shaken, my kindness is not removed from you, nor is my covenant of peace shaken, said Yehovah, who has compassion on you. O you afflicted one, tossed with storm and not comforted, see, I am setting your stones in antimony, I have laid your foundations with sapphires. Okay, here he's talking about the New Jerusalem. He's talking about the millennial kingdom. And have made your battlements of rubies, your gates of crystal, and all your walls of precious stones. They would have no idea what he was talking about here. Obviously, with the benefit of the book of Revelation, we know exactly what he's speaking of here. And all your children are taught by Yehovah, and abundant is the shalom of your children. In righteousness you establish yourself, be far from oppression, for you fear not, and from ruin, for it does not come near you. And we're going to see how the children of Israel went astray in their hearts. They committed adultery against Yehovah. They were divorced and they were scattered amongst the nations, but he used it all to bring them back. By doing so, he circumcised their hearts towards them, and he prophesies, now you're going to forget about me. Okay, you're going to be scattered, but I'm going to gather you back. In righteousness, you're going to establish yourself. Jeremiah 31:31-33 says, see, the days are coming, declares Yehovah, and I have made a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah, not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim. My covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yehovah. For this is the covenant I have made with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yehovah. I have put my Torah in their inward parts and written it on their hearts, and I have been their Elohim, and they have been my people. So he's saying, look, I've divorced them, but I will bring them back again in marriage to me, and I will be their Elohim. They will be my people. Romans 7:1-4, do you not know, brothers, for I speak to those knowing the Torah rules over a man as long as he lives. For the married woman has been bound by the Torah to the living husband, but if the husband dies, she's released from the Torah concerning her husband. Okay, we've seen before. They were divorced. Yehovah couldn't take them back. So what was required? It would be required for Yehovah to die. Now, they were married to Yehovah. Okay? But they weren't married to Yehovah in eternity. They don't exist in eternity. They were married to Yehovah here in this reality, okay, within his creation. Okay, he came down on Mount Sinai and they were betrothed to him. Okay? He came in the flesh. Again, he entered into reality. But he came in a form in which he could die. And when he died, the wife was released from that Torah so that she could become remarried at that point. So then, while her husband lives, she shall be called an adulteress if she becomes another man's. But if her husband dies, she is free from the Torah, so that she is not an adulteress, having become another man's. So, my brothers, you also were put to death through the Torah by the body of Messiah, for you to become another's. Okay? The one who was raised from the dead, the risen Savior. So, not only did the death of the husband release the wife, but we also were put to death to the Torah. He's just gone through in Romans 6 about baptism, about how it's the death of the old self and the rebirth of the new. So that Torah that we were under at the time, okay, that was going to bring death upon us, we died to the Torah so that we were released from the consequences of our sin, so that we could be remarried to Yeshua, who's raised from the dead. Luke 22:19-20 says, and taking bread, giving thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, this is my body which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Likewise the cup also after supper, saying, this cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you. So just like Moses came and said, this is the blood of the covenant that they then renewed before they were entering into the land. This is a new covenant that Yeshua was making. And he says, this is the cup. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. This is the blood of the covenant. Hebrews 9:15-20 says, and because of this he is the mediator of a new covenant, so that death having taken place for the redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant. Okay, the husband dies, the wife's released. The wife also dies, we die, and we are dead to the Torah. Then we raise to the newness of life, which is why Paul says, no, look, if you continue in sin after you've been given grace, then that tends to death. Okay, you've been given another chance. You've been given the newness of life. Those who are called might receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. For where a covenant is, it is necessary for the death of the covenant sacrifice to be established. I want you to notice at this point that it's talking about a covenant. Because people, when they go through the book of Hebrews, they'll say, no, the word covenant isn't here. When it says the first and the second, they say the word covenant doesn't follow it. But the word covenant is implied because the whole context of the passage is about a covenant. The death of the covenant sacrifice to be established. Okay, so you want to start a new covenant, there has to be a sacrifice made, there has to be blood shed in order to make it. For a covenant after death is firm, since it is never valid while the covenant sacrifice is living. So while Yeshua was alive, the new covenant had not come into force. It required his death for him to bring us into covenant, and it was a marriage covenant. You wonder, when did we become betrothed to Yeshua? It was here when we entered into covenant. The covenant is a marriage covenant. Therefore, not even the first covenant was instituted without blood. For when, according to Torah, every command had been spoken by Moshe to all the people, he took the blood of calves and goats with water and scarlet wool and hyssop and sprinkled both the book itself and all the people, saying, this is the blood of the covenant which Elohim commanded you. 2 Corinthians 11 verse 2 says, for I am jealous for you with the jealousy according to Elohim, for I gave you in marriage to one husband, to present you as a chaste virgin to Messiah. When they entered into covenant, okay, they were given in marriage to Yeshua as their husband. Revelation 19 verse 7 says, let us be glad and rejoice and give him praise, for the marriage of the Lamb has come and his wife has prepared herself. Okay, so this is a future event when he comes back. Fulfill Yom Kippur, okay, the day of vengeance. After that we've got the Feast of Sukkot, which is the marriage supper of the Lamb when he comes to tabernacle with us. Galatians 3:6-18 gives us even more information about the covenants. Okay, so we've got the first and the second covenant, and they're marriage covenants. That was the purpose of those covenants. It was to be taken in marriage, to be Yehovah's, to be Yeshua. There's another covenant that we need to consider though. Even so, Abraham did believe Elohim, and it was reckoned unto him as righteousness. This is the Abrahamic covenant. Know then that those who are of belief are sons of Abraham. And the scripture, having foreseen that Elohim would declare right the nations by belief, announced the good news to Abraham beforehand, saying, all the nations shall be blessed in you. Okay, so all who are of belief are sons of Abraham. And the covenant was made with Abraham that if you are of belief, it will be accredited to you as righteousness. So that those who are of belief are blessed with Abraham the believer. For as many as are of the works of the Torah are under the curse. For it has been written, cursed is everyone who does not continue in all that has been written in the book of the Torah to do them. So Paul's going to go on to discuss getting your salvation from these two covenants, because what the Galatians had done is they had forsaken the Messiah, and they'd said basically, Torah is all that we need. The works of the Torah, that's all that we need, which is sadly the situation that we see now in the Torah movement, with so many moving away from Messiah and saying, no, all we need is the Torah to be righteous before Elohim. Well, Paul says, no, look, it says, if you don't continue in everything that the Torah says, then you're going to be cursed. What you need is a Redeemer who comes and redeems you from those curses, okay? So that you're given grace for your transgressions, so that you can then die to the Torah and be raised to the newness of life and have the opportunity to walk it out. And that no one is declared right by Torah before Elohim is clear, for the righteous shall live by belief. He's quoting Habakkuk 2:4 there. And the Torah is not of belief, but the man who does them shall live by them. Again, he's quoting the Torah here. Okay, the Torah is not of belief. He says in Romans 9, he says that the problem that Israel had was they had the Torah of righteousness, and they pursued after it, but they didn't do it by faith. Okay, it's very different to do something by works, to think that you're going to earn your salvation, than it is to believe in the author of it and to do it out of belief and love for the author. Messiah redeemed us from the curse of the Torah, having become a curse for us, for it has been written, cursed is everyone who hangs upon a tree, in order that the blessing of Abraham might come upon the nations in Messiah Yeshua to receive the promise of the Spirit through belief. So all had sinned, all had fallen short of the glory of God, okay, and all were under the curses in the Torah. What they needed was a Redeemer to come, to redeem them from that, to give them grace, to let them be raised to the newness of life, so that they could walk it out, in order that the blessing of Abraham might come upon the nations. Now that they come to faith, okay, now that they've come to walking the Torah by faith, the blessing of Abraham can come on all of the nations, but they need a Redeemer for it. This is what the people in Galatia had walked away from. Brothers, as a man I say it, a covenant, even though it is a man's, yet if it is confirmed, no one sets it aside or adds to it. So Paul's saying, look, if the covenant made with Abraham was made by a man, nobody could set it aside, no one could do away with it, and no one could add to that covenant, because it's a covenant, it's a promise that stands. I promise you this, that faith will be accounted to you as righteousness. I promise you that. There's nothing that can change that. But the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. He does not say, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to your seed, who is Messiah. So all who are of Messiah. Okay? Now this I say, Torah that came 430 years later does not annul a covenant previously confirmed by Elohim in Messiah, so as to do away with the promise. Okay, so the Torah that came about afterwards. If you're trying to get your salvation from doing the Torah, then what you're saying is that's annulled the covenant that was made with Abraham, which was faith would be accounted as righteousness. Think of it like this. If I said to you all, okay, I will give £100 to anybody who sincerely desires to do what is pleasing to me. Okay? That's a promise that I've made. £100 to anyone who sincerely desires that. 10 years later, I come out with a list. And I say, this is the list of things that I find pleasing. Okay? Everyone can look at the list and go, there's a load of stuff on this that I've never done. Okay? So does that mean I'm not going to get the £100? Well, no. Okay? If you then took the list and you were like, wow, these are the things that JP likes. I'm going to do all these because I sincerely desire to do what pleases him. Okay? It's different, isn't it? One, you're getting the £100 from the sincere desire, and the other, you're getting the £100 because you've done the list. Okay? Very, very different. For if the inheritance is by Torah, it is no longer by promise, for Elohim gave it to Abraham through a promise. So if the £100 is by the list, it's no longer by promise. It's got nothing to do with the sincere desire to do what is pleasing. Rather, it is through perfect obedience to the list, and everyone has fallen short of the list. Now that doesn't mean that the list isn't important, because when you know that that list is what is pleasing to me, to not do it is a clear statement that you do not sincerely desire to do what is pleasing to me. But it doesn't mean that doing the list in and of itself, without that sincere desire, without that faith, will get you the £100. Galatians 4:21-26 says, "Say to me, you who wish to be under Torah, do you not hear the Torah?" Okay, say to me, those of you who wish to be under the list, those of you who wish to get the £100 from doing the list, do you not hear the list? Don't you know that there's a load of stuff on the list that you've never done? You can never get the £100 by doing the list. For it has been written that Abraham had 2 sons, one by a female servant, the other by a free woman. Okay, so Abraham had Ishmael by Hagar, the female servant, and he had Yitzchak by Sarah, the free woman. But he who was of the female servant was born according to the flesh, and he that was of the free woman through promise. Okay, so Ishmael was born according to the flesh. Sarah and Abraham came up with this plan. They were like, well, if we do this, then you will have a son. Okay, so it was very much by the works, by the flesh, that this was achieved. He that was of the free woman through a promise, though, Sarah was barren. She didn't have any chance of having any kids, but Yehovah had promised that she would have kids. Okay? This is an allegory. This is allegorical, for these are the 2 covenants. Okay, there's the one at Mount Sinai, which you can do by works, by the flesh, kind of, I've worked out how it is that I'm going to achieve this thing. But the other is by promise. The promise being, if you sincerely desire to do what I say, if you've actually got faith in me, then you will receive salvation. One indeed from Mount Sinai, which brings forth slavery, which is Hagar. Okay, so if I say you get the £100 if you do what I sincerely desire, if you're trying to do it by the list, you're in slavery to that list. You better have done everything on that list at every point during your life. Okay, so you're in bondage to the list. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to Jerusalem, which now is and is in slavery with her children. Okay, so we've got the covenant at Mount Sinai, represented by Ishmael, who comes from Hagar. And that corresponds to Jerusalem that was on the earth at that time, where they were all trying to do the Torah, but not of faith. Okay, which is what Paul says was their stumbling block. But the Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of us all. The mother of us all is Sarah. Okay, so the Jerusalem above, which is by promise, that's Sarah. The Jerusalem that was on the earth at that time was in bondage to the list. They didn't sincerely desire to do it because it was in their hearts to do what Yehovah wanted. They were just, legalistic in the way that they were trying to get their salvation. Verse 14 says, "Neither with you only do I make this covenant and this oath," and this should be a familiar concept to us. Okay, not only with the people who were with Yeshua when he said, this cup is the new covenant in my blood. Not only with those people was he making the covenant, but also with those who came afterwards who wanted to enter into that covenant. But with him who stands here with us today before Yehovah our Elohim, as well as with him who is not here with us today. For you know how we dwelt in the land of Nitzavim, and how we passed through the nations which you passed through. And you saw their abominations and their idols, wood and stone, silver and gold, which were with them. Lest there should be among you a man or woman or clan or tribe whose heart is turning away today from Yehovah our Elohim to go and serve the gods of these nations. Lest there should be among you a root bearing gall or wormwood. So this is interesting what it's being said here. Okay, you passed through the nations. You saw all the abominations of the nations. Why? In case there should be among you a man, woman, clan or tribe whose heart is turning away from Yehovah, okay, to go and serve the gods of these nations. Why? In case there should be among you a root bearing gall or wormwood. Okay, Yehovah's concerned about this, and we'll see this over the next few passages. He's concerned that there will be among his people a root that bears gall and wormwood. So we can understand what gall and wormwood is from the rest of the scriptures. Isaiah 11 verse 10 tells us it gives us another example of what a root is, why he doesn't want a root among his people. And in that day there has been a root of Yeshai, a root of Jesse, standing as a banner to the people. Unto him the Gentiles shall seek, and his rest shall be esteemed. So Yeshua is the root. Okay, roots bring forth fruit. They bring forth other things which grow from them. Amos 5:7 says, O you who are turning judgment to wormwood and have cast down righteousness to the earth. So these phrases are used throughout Scripture. We've got gall, sometimes translated as gall. We've got wormwood, sometimes translated as wormwood. Or there's bitterness, gall, sometimes poison. Okay, you who are turning judgment, okay, mishpat, his mishpatim is justice, to wormwood. So we've got it being contrasted here. One is obedience to the Torah. You've turned that, but you've turned it to bitterness, turned it to something which is of no use, and have cast down righteousness to the earth. So it's contrasted with judgment, it's contrasted with righteousness. Amos 6:12 says, do horses run on a rock? Does one plow it with oxen? For you have turned judgment into poison. Okay, it's the same word which is gall. Judgment into gall. The fruit of righteousness you've turned into wormwood. Okay, so this fruit which is brought forth from a root bearing gall and wormwood. Deuteronomy 32 says, the vine is of the vine of Sodom and of the fields of Amorah, Sodom and Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. Okay, so this gall is poison, or it's bitter. And this is the fruit that they bring forth. Okay, this is the fruit that having a root bearing gall and wormwood among you will bring forth. Their wine is the poison of serpents and the fierce venom of cobras. So gall and wormwood is actually associated with false doctrine as well. Okay, we know that wine is an idiom for false doctrine. This is going to be important as we continue through. It's the poison of serpents. It's the gall of serpents. Okay, a root bearing gall and wormwood. So the fruit that they bring forth is gall. It's bitter. The wine which comes from that fruit, okay, the false doctrine that comes from that fruit is gall too. Proverbs 5:3-4 says, for the lips of a strange woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. So this is someone bringing forth strange doctrine, okay, to Yehovah's people. It sounds good, okay, it's smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Okay, so their wine is as the gall of serpents. Okay, this false doctrine in the end is bitter as wormwood. Job 20 verse 16 says, he suckles the poison, the gall of cobras. The tongue of the poisonous snake slays him. So what is it that this person is suckling on? It's this gall of serpents. It says the tongue of the poisonous snake slays him. Not the teeth of the poisonous snake, the tongue of the poisonous snake, which brings forth this false doctrine. Hosea 10 verse 4 says, they have spoken words, swearing falsely and making a covenant. Therefore judgment shall spring up like gall. The word's the same one as gall. Poisonous weeds. Both gall and wormwood are plants, okay, in the furrows of the field. Jeremiah 8:14 says, why are we sitting still? Gather yourselves and let us go into the walled cities, and let us be silent there, for Yehovah our Elohim has let us perish and given us poisoned water, water of gall to drink. Okay, so instead of the water of the word, they've got the water of gall. The root bearing gall and wormwood was among them. The fruit that they bring forth is gall and wormwood. The doctrine that is then brought forth from that is gall and wormwood. And this is where they end up. Yehovah our Elohim has given us these things. Jeremiah 9:15 says, therefore, thus said Yehovah Sebaot, the Elohim of Israel, see, I am making this people eat wormwood, and I shall make them drink water of gall. Jeremiah 23:15 says, therefore, thus said Yehovah Sebaot concerning the prophets, see, I am making them eat wormwood and make them drink poison water, for defilement has gone out into the land from the prophets of Jerusalem. And this all came from them going after false idols, going after the idols of their heart, going after the false gods. Going after those things brings forth gall and wormwood as fruit, and then it brings forth doctrine. And we can see that in the world around us. Doctrine that comes from going after the idols in your heart. Acts 8:20-23 says, and Cephas said to him, let your silver perish with you, because you thought to buy the gift of Elohim through money. Okay, so this is Shimon the sorcerer. You have neither part nor lot in this matter, for your heart is not right before Elohim. Repent therefore of this evil of yours, and plead with Elohim to forgive you the intention of your heart. Okay, so again, it comes back to the heart. Obviously, the Greek New Testament is written in Greek. The Septuagint is the Old Testament written in Greek. If we go to the Old Testament written in Greek, we look for the words for gall and wormwood. You can find them in the New Testament as well. So his heart's not right before Elohim. Ask to forgive the intention of your heart. For I see that you are poisoned by bitterness. The words are gall and wormwood there. And bound by unrighteousness. Okay, so they go astray in their hearts. They go after these false idols. The idols in the heart, they're false gods. They're bound by unrighteousness. The root bearing gall and wormwood comes up among them. And if those people are in our midst, in their midst, brings forth bad fruit, and then it brings forth bad doctrine. Verse 18 said, lest there should be among you a man or woman or clan or tribe whose heart is turning away. Again, this is about the heart. It was about the heart when it was with Shimon. It's about the heart when it's false idols that are in the heart. It's all to do with our hearts. To go and serve the gods of these nations, lest there should be among you a root bearing gall and wormwood. Verse 19 says, and it come to pass when he who hears the word of this curse, okay, it's the root bearing gall or wormwood, that he should bless himself in his heart, saying, I have peace though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart, in order to add drunkenness to thirst. Okay, so this false doctrine, this wine of serpents, which is brought forth from a root bearing gall and wormwood, okay, he adds drunkenness, which comes from the wine, which comes from this false doctrine of gall and wormwood, to thirst. He's got a need for righteousness. He's got a need for the water of the word, and that's a thirst that everybody has. He adds drunkenness to it though, because he drinks the wine which will not satiate his thirst. Yehovah would not forgive him, but rather the displeasure of Yehovah and his jealousy shall burn against that man, and every curse that is written in this book shall settle on him, and Yehovah shall blot out his name from under the heavens. Yehovah shall separate him for evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the Torah. Okay, so it doesn't end well for this person. But this is the root-bearing gall or wormwood, and this, we are told, can be a man or a woman or a clan or a tribe that are within Israel. People who have come here will recognize this. This was from Torah portion Matot and Masai from last year. It didn't record, it didn't go up on the internet, but I don't think that I've ever seen a better illustration of the person in Deuteronomy 29. Okay, when he hears the words of this curse, he blesses himself in his heart again. Says, I have peace though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart, in order to add drunkenness to thirst. Okay, this person, they're in a house that's on fire. Okay, if you are in transgression of the Torah, you may as well be in a house that's on fire. You're that close to death. Just says, this is fine. I will have shalom, though I walk in the stubbornness of my own heart. It shall come to pass when he hears the words of this curse, that he shall bless himself in his heart, saying, I have peace, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart. Because what other choice do people who are in this position actually have? Okay, we're going to be looking as we go on about those who are unable to enter the kingdom, and what makes them unable to enter into the kingdom. But this person is walking in the stubbornness of his own heart. Okay, he will not turn his heart to Yehovah. It's not in his heart to do that. Okay, the Torah is not written in his heart. What's written in his heart, his true desire, is something different. So when people hear the Torah, and they don't want to do it, or they don't want to do parts of it. Okay? What else can they do? All they can do is ignore the situation that they're in. All that they can do is bring forth some kind of false doctrine to add drunkenness to their thirst. Because the only other thing that they could do is to actually submit, to circumcise their hearts, to have the law written on their hearts, to Shema, which then leads to loving Yehovah. But they're not going to do that. They're unable to do that. It's not in their hearts to do it. So the only other thing that they can do is bless themselves in their heart and say, I'll have shalom, even though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart. This is why we see it so often. The number of people who've come here and seem like they're bang into doing the Torah until something comes along to test them. I want to look at the reason why that is later. Jeremiah 6 verse 10 says, to whom shall I speak and give warning so that they hear? See, their ear is uncircumcised, and they are unable to listen. See, the word of Yehovah is a reproach to them. They do not delight in it. Because their ear is uncircumcised, their heart is uncircumcised, it's not submitted to Yehovah. So all they can do is come up with a false doctrine, because the word of Yehovah is a reproach to them. So they're going to need a false doctrine instead to cover over that, so that they can still delude themselves, give themselves peace in their heart, even though they know Yehovah exists and that he's a righteous judge. The only way they can reconcile that is by bringing forth this gall and this wormwood, this wine of serpents. The only thing that can allow someone to do that. Deuteronomy 32:21 says, they made me jealous by what is not ale. They provoked me with their vapors. Okay? The things that are in the world, okay, we can have them as idols in our heart. They were going astray after false gods. They were going astray after idols. People do this today, though, and we need to be very, very careful that we are not doing this. And actually, don't say, well, of course I'm not doing that. Actually engage with what they were doing. Okay, they provoked him with their vapors, by the things which were of no substance. He made him jealous because they were in a marriage covenant with him. Okay, and they went out and they committed adultery by putting other things above him. We've looked before at the idea that an idol is anything he put before Yehovah, and that's a concept that's familiar. But really examine in your life, okay, is there anything which will stop you from keeping a command? Anything at all. That thing then you are declaring to Yehovah is more important than him. Okay, if you ever say, I can't keep this command, okay, maybe that's true. Maybe you're one of the ones who are unable to keep the command because it's not written in your heart to do it. If it's written in your heart to do it, of course you're going to do it, but it's not for everyone. Okay, an issue of faith is not for everyone. They made Yehovah jealous by what is not ale, and we can do it. We're in a marriage covenant as well. So when we choose something that is not him, we make him jealous. We're committing adultery against him. 2 Kings 17-15 says, and rejected his laws and his covenant that he had made with their fathers, and his witnesses which he had witnessed against them, and went after vapors, and became of no substance. And after the Gentiles who were all around them, of whom Yehovah had commanded them not to do like them. He said, you're set apart to me. You won't do anything like they're doing. Psalm 31 verse 6 says, 5-6 says, into your hand I commit my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Yehovah, Ale of truth. I have hated those who treasure lying vapors, but I trust in Yehovah. Okay, you think, of course I would never treasure a lying vapor. But literally, anything that has caused you to say, I can't do that command because of this, whatever it is, I can't do that command. What you're saying is, I won't do that command because of this, because this thing is more important. John 8:30-34 says, as he was speaking these words, many believed in him. So as Yeshua was speaking, many believed the words that he was saying. So Yeshua said to those Yehudim who believed in him, to the Jews who believed when he was speaking the words, if you stay in my word, you are truly my disciples. It's okay to hear the word and to believe the word. Okay, we see that in the parable of the sower. People who receive the word with joy, and then because they're sown on rocky ground, when a test comes, they go after whatever that is because they value that more. That's the idol that they've got. Those sown on thorny ground who are choked by the cares of the world, okay, when they come, they perish. They don't grow up and bear fruit. Okay, so these people are people who heard the word. When the seed was scattered, okay, it took hold and it started to grow. He said to them, no, only if you continue in my word are you my disciples. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. It'll actually make you free. They answered them and said, we are the seed of Abraham, and we've been servants to no one at any time. How do you say you shall become free? They didn't get that although they believed the word, they weren't actually made free by the word. Yeshua answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant of sin. So it doesn't matter if you've believed the word when you've heard it. Okay, the word's been sown in your heart. It's begun to grow. However, you can fail at that point. You've got to continue in the word. Everyone doing sin, which is breaking the Torah, for any reason, okay, is a servant to sin. If you say, I can't keep the Shabbat because of my job, you're a servant to sin. You're a servant to that sin. You're in bondage to that sin. If you cannot tear yourself away from the television and watching worldly entertainment, watching films, I've got to see the new Avengers movie, or I've got to see the new Star Wars film, even though it's filled with the most ridiculous sin when you break it down: fornication, illicit unions, okay, violence, magic. If you can't tear yourself away from that, then you are the servant of that. That is the idol. You've set up an idol in your heart, and I'm not prepared to do this. I know that I'm supposed to, but I can't do that, or I won't do that. I won't change that. What you've done there, you've taken that thing, and you've said, this is more important than Yehovah. You've declared that. Television is also a gateway to all of the other idols, okay? All the idols that everyone has. Okay, television's not just an idol in and of itself, it's a gateway to actually partake in all of those idols in your heart. Covered this before, smoking or whatever form of addiction it is. Okay, if you will not separate yourself from that unto righteousness, unto holiness, into being set apart, then what you're doing is you're taking that thing, you're putting it above Yehovah and saying, I believe the words of Yehovah, however, this is more important to me. Okay? There might not be any of those things, but I want you to ask yourself, okay, look at your lives and say, is there anything that makes me say, I can't do that command because of this? In whatever situation, I can't do that command because of this. Because that's the thing that you're the servant of. That's the thing that you're in bondage to. Okay, you're not the servant of Yehovah if there's anything like that. Okay, whatever causes you to disobey a command, that's what you're in bondage to. Okay, that's what you're the servant of. Paul says this: do you not know that to whom you present yourselves servants for obedience, you are the servants of the one whom you obey? That's Yehovah most of the time. It doesn't matter, because when it comes to whatever issue it is and you obey something else, you are the servant of that thing. You can be the servant of sin, which leads to death, or you can be the servant of obedience to righteousness. One or the other, though. Yeshua says, if you continue in the word, whatever comes up in your life, if you continue doing the word, whatever trial, whatever test it is, then you're his servants. The word says that people are fools if they disregard the word. Okay, and I can't think of a better illustration of what these fools are doing, okay, with their sin, with the sin that they're serving, that they're in obedience to this sin. They're feeding that sin, and that sin is ultimately going to lead to their deaths. Luke 14:15-23. Okay, this whole idea of I can't do this commandment, okay, it particularly comes to mind and is particularly relevant every year at this time when it comes to people doing Sukkot. I can't do Sukkot. I can't do it because of this, because of my job, because of whatever else it is. I can't do it. What that person is actually saying is, I won't do the commands. I won't serve Yehovah because I'm going to go and serve this instead. This is the idol in my heart. And it's amazing. In Luke 14, he gives them this parable about those who are invited to the wedding supper. As I mentioned before, the wedding supper happens at Sukkot. So they're invited to Sukkot. And when one of those who sat at the table with him heard this, he said to him, "Blessed is he who eats bread in the kingdom of Elohim." And he said to him, "A certain man gave a great supper and invited many. And he sent his servant at supper time to say to those who were invited, 'Come, for all is now ready.' But one by one they all began making excuses. The first said to him, 'I have bought a field. I need to go and see it. I ask you to have me excused.' And another said, 'I have brought 5 yoke of oxen. I'm going to try them out. I ask you to have me excused.' Another said, 'I've married a wife, and because of this, I am unable to come.'" I can't come. And that servant came and reported to his master. Then the master of the house, being wroth, he didn't say, "Oh no, it's okay. I'm sure that they'll get it eventually. Okay, just for this, they weren't able to come, but I'm sure that it will be fine in the future." He's angry. He said to his servant, "Hurry out into the streets and the lanes of the city and bring in here the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind." And the servant said, "Master, it is done as you commanded, and still there is room." And the master said to the servant, "Go into the street corners and hedges and compel them to come in so that my house is filled. For I say to you that none of those men who were invited shall taste my supper." Oh no, we can't. There's this thing. I need to ask you to excuse me from this. Okay? None of them will taste of the Lord's Supper. Luke 13:22-24 says, "And he was going through the cities and villages, teaching and journeying toward Jerusalem. And someone said to him, 'Master, are there few who are being saved?' And he said to them," his answer is very interesting, context to this, "Strive to enter in through the narrow gate, because many, I say to you, shall seek to enter in and shall not be able." We can't do it. No, it's not that they're physically unable to do it or that they couldn't do it if they decided not to. It's that it's not in their hearts. It's not written in their hearts. They can't do it. They literally can't do it because it's not what is written in their hearts. What's written in their hearts is something else, something that they desire to do over the command. We can't do it. Well, fair enough. Maybe you can't. Luke 14:27-33 says, "Whoever does not bear his cross and come after me is unable to become my disciple." Unable. They can't do it. "For who of you wishing to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it?" Okay, people know what's required of them. "Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is unable to finish it, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, 'This man began to build and was unable to finish.' Or what king going to fight against another king does not sit down first and take counsel whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against them with 20,000? And all of this is in the context of what's just been said in Luke 13 about many will try to come in, but they will not be able. These are the ones who are unable. If not, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks conditions of peace. So then, every one of you who does not give up all that he has is unable to be my disciple. Who gives up all that he has. It doesn't come to doing a command and they're like, oh no, I can't do it because of this thing which is more important to me. Okay, they might not say that it's more important to them. They might just say, no, but we need to do it. Okay, but it is more important to them, because if it wasn't more important to them, they wouldn't let it stop them from doing the commandments. Joshua 24 verse 19 says, then Yehoshua said to the people, you are not able to serve Yehovah, for he is a set-apart Elohim, a jealous El is he. He does not bear with your transgression and with your sins. He doesn't bear with the people who set up an idol in their heart and say, no, I'm going to give all of my praise and my worship to this idol, and I'm going to set this above Yehovah. I'm going to do what this idol wants. And he doesn't bear with that. Not just like, oh, that's nice. Please don't do that. No, I'm going to do it anyway. Oh, no, please, really, I would like you not to do that. Not who Yehovah is, okay? He's set apart and he's jealous. If you put an idol in your heart and you commit adultery with that idol above the covenant that you've entered into with him, for him to be your husband, he is jealous. He will not bear with that. In the second part, we're going to look at the circumcision of the heart, and we're going to tie some of these things together and come back in a little bit. So I'll go back a few verses so we get the context of what we're going to talk about next. Lest there should be among you a man or woman or clan or tribe whose heart is turning away. Okay, so you've gone through all of the other nations. You've seen the abominations that they do. Lest there should be someone among you whose heart's turning away to go and serve the gods of these nations. Lest there should be among you a root bearing gall and wormwood. And we saw that the root brings forth fruit of gall and wormwood, and then this brings forth the false doctrine. And this false doctrine is required for what we see next. And it come to pass when he hears the word of this curse that he should bless himself in his heart, saying, I have peace, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart. Okay, so you don't want to have gall and wormwood among you in case it comes to pass then, because of this false doctrine, that somebody can say, I bless myself in my heart, and I'm going to have peace, even though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart. This false doctrine's allowed me to do this in order to add drunkenness to thirst. Yehovah would not forgive him, but rather the displeasure of Yehovah and his jealousy shall burn against that man, and every curse that is written in the book shall settle on him, and Yehovah shall blot out his name from under the heavens, and Yehovah shall separate him for evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the Torah. So this root bearing gall and wormwood brings forth fruit. That's why the next verse says this: the generation to come of your children who rise up after you, and the foreigner who comes from a far land, shall say, when they see the plagues of that land and the sicknesses which Yehovah has sent into it. Okay, so it just skips from talking about this guy, this one guy. It says all of the curses of the covenant are going to come upon this guy. Okay, and that includes being scattered. When they see the plagues of that land and the sicknesses which Jehovah has sent into it, all its land is sulfur, salt and burning. It is not sown, it does not bear, nor does any grass grow there. Like the overthrow of Sodom and Amorah, Admah and Zeboim, which Yehovah overthrew in his displeasure and his wrath. Okay, so Sodom and Gomorrah, and then these two places, Admah and Zeboim, they were outlying cities which were also destroyed at the same time. And all nations shall say, why has Yehovah done so to this land? What does the heat of this great displeasure mean? And it shall be said, because they have forgotten the covenant of Yehovah, Elohim of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. And they went and served other gods and bowed themselves to them, gods that they did not know and that he had not given to them. Okay, so they came into covenant with Yehovah. He took them to be his wife, and then they went off and they committed adultery with these other gods. Therefore the displeasure of Yehovah burned against this land to bring on it every curse that is written in this book. Yehovah uprooted them from their land in displeasure and in wrath and in great rage, and cast them into another land as it is today. The secret matters belong to Yehovah our Elohim, but what is revealed belongs to us and to our children forever, to do all the words of this Torah. And we can look at them and we can say, Yehovah brought these judgments on the land. Okay, he scattered them into Assyria. Then he took the house of Yehudah and he scattered them into Babylon. Okay, and at the moment we're in the dispersion. We can look at them and we can see the punishment that was brought upon them for their disobedience, because they went after idols. Okay, they went after idols in their heart, as Ezekiel says, which we will look at. And we saw what the idols are that people have in their hearts today. Anything which makes you say, I can't keep that commandment. I won't keep that commandment because of this thing. Okay? So people do the same thing today. Paul says in Romans 2:3-9, or do you think, O man, that you who judge those practicing such wrongs and doing the same, that you shall escape the judgment of Elohim? Okay, so we look at them and we say, wow, they went astray. They went after their idols. And Yehovah cast them out of the land and he had no time for them. He divorced them. Do we think, when we're in that position, we're doing exactly the same thing with the idols in our hearts? Do we think that we're going to escape the judgment of Elohim? Or do you despise the riches of his kindness and tolerance and patience, not knowing that the kindness of Elohim leads you to repentance? Do you lightly esteem the fact that he's given you kindness and tolerance and patience? You still have the idol set up in your heart. You look at the other people doing wrong and you judge all of them. But you do the same things in your heart. But according to your hardness and unrepentant heart, you are treasuring up for yourself wrath in the day of wrath and revelation of righteous judgment of Elohim, who shall render to each one according to his works. Everlasting life to those who by persistence in good work seek for esteem, respect, and incorruptibility. As Yeshua said to those who believed his word when he spoke it, if you continue in my words, you are my disciples. If there comes to something though, and you think, I really don't want to do the commandment because I've got this other thing that I want to do instead. Whatever the justification for doing that thing is, if you make that an idol, then you've not continued in his work, and it's not by persistence in good work that you're seeking for esteem, respect, and to be raised incorruptible. But wrath and displeasure to those who are self-seeking and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness. So when we look at what Yehovah did to that land, we can say, well, what was the cause of his great displeasure? Well, it was because they went astray after other gods. They went astray in their hearts. But we do the same. Verse 9 says, affliction and distress on every human being working what is evil, of the Yehudite first and also of the Greek. Okay, on his people first. Judgment starts at the house of Elohim. They're the people he's going to judge first. And we think, oh no, we can judge those other people. They're doing wickedness. The Israelites in the past, they did wickedness. Oh, but me, I'm good. But I can't do Sukkot. Couldn't do Sukkot. No, I'm not able to do Sukkot. Verse 1 says, Deuteronomy 30 says, and it has been when all these words come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you've brought them back to your heart, okay, among all the Gentiles where Yehovah your Elohim drives you, and have turned back to Yehovah your Elohim, obeyed his voice according to all that I command you today, with all your heart and all your soul, you and your children, then Yehovah has turned back your captivity and has had compassion on you, and he's turned back and gathered you from all the peoples where Yehovah your Elohim has scattered you. Okay, so this is the purpose that he did it all for. Okay, he warned all of his people. He gave them the blessings and the curses. Now we're in a position where we are bringing them back to our hearts, where we are recognizing the position that we're in, and that it's because he's just and because he's turned his face from us, and we're turning back to his word. And some people are shemaing his word, are obeying, trusting and obeying his word just because he said to do it. In verse 4 it says, if any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under the heavens, from there Yehovah your Elohim does gather you, and from there he does take you. And Yehovah your Elohim has brought you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you have possessed it, and he has done good to you and increased you more than your fathers. So at this time, what he does is he takes us to the land of Israel. Okay, this is the second Exodus. We see these prophetic patterns throughout Scripture. We'll see that there are people who are gathered into the wilderness as another prophetic fulfillment of this. But this that it's talking about, this is when we're taken back to the land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We see when it is in Matthew 24, 30 to 31. And then the sign of the Son of Adam shall appear in the heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the Son of Adam coming on the clouds of heaven with power and much esteem. And he shall send out his angels with the sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other, in the fulfillment of this. And Yeshua takes us then into the land of Israel, in fulfillment of him saying, if you're taken to the farthest parts under the heavens, from there Yehovah your Elohim does gather you. And then he takes you back to the land, okay, from one end of the heavens to the other. This is when they're gathered. This is when they're taken to the land. Verse 6 says, and Yehovah your Elohim has circumcised your heart and the heart of your seed, to love Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, so that you might live. So when you are scattered amongst all the nations and you bring this word back to your mind and you repent and you begin to shema the word, okay, then he takes you back to the land of Israel. And then Yehovah has circumcised your heart. The entire play out of history was to bring his people to that point when they had circumcised hearts before him. Jeremiah 6 verse 10, okay, shows us what this idea of hearts being circumcised or uncircumcised means. We read it before. To whom shall I speak and give warning so that they hear? See, their ear is uncircumcised. Okay, their ear does not submit to what they hear. They are unable to listen. See, the word of Yehovah is a reproach to them. They do not delight in it. Acts 7:51 says, you stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears. Okay, so to be circumcised in heart and ears is to not be stiff-necked, to be submitted. You always resist the Ruach HaKodesh as your fathers did, you also do. Leviticus 26, 40 to 42 is interesting. Okay, Deuteronomy 28 had all of the curses in, and this is talking about after the blessings and the curses have come upon you, and you've called it back to mind, both the blessing and the curses in the land where you go to. Leviticus 26 is also the curses of the covenant, the covered there, and this exact same event described here in Deuteronomy 30 is described in Leviticus 26 as well. It says, but if they confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their fathers with their trespass in which they trespassed against me, and that they have also walked contrary to me, and that I also have walked contrary to them and have brought them into the land of their enemies. This is them recognizing the blessing and the curses in the land of their enemies where they are. If their uncircumcised heart is then humbled, if they circumcise their hearts, it's Yehovah who circumcises their hearts by bringing all of this upon them, but it's those people who have to circumcise their hearts to submit to these things, and they accept the punishment of their iniquity. They call all those things to mind, the blessing and the curse in the land where they are. Then I shall remember my covenant with Yaakov, and also my covenant with Yitzchak, and also remember my covenant with Abraham, and remember the land, okay, the land of Israel. Exactly what it says in Deuteronomy 30 will happen. From there I will gather you from all the places where I've scattered you when you've submitted, and I'll take you back to the land of Israel, and Yehovah has circumcised your heart. It's the same event which is spoken of here. Romans 2:25 to 29 says, for circumcision indeed profits if you practice the Torah. Okay, so circumcision is profitable for anyone who is practicing the Torah. But if you are a transgressor of the Torah, your circumcision has become uncircumcision. Okay, your circumcision before Yehovah doesn't mean anything unless you keep the Torah. Okay, if you are circumcised but you break the Torah, then before Yehovah you may as well be uncircumcised. So if an uncircumcised one watches over the righteousness of the Torah, shall not his uncircumcision be reckoned as circumcision? This is exactly what the case was with Abraham. When he was called, he was uncircumcised, where his faith was accounted to him as righteousness. However, what he did then, as a seal of the righteousness that he had by faith, Paul says in Romans 4, he became circumcised. So he watched over the righteousnesses of the Torah. Okay, he guarded over them. He did what was right in the eyes of Yehovah. And then he became circumcised because of the faith that he had. So if an uncircumcised one like Abraham watches over the righteousnesses of the Torah, his uncircumcision is reckoned as circumcision. If Abraham had died right there and then, even though he wasn't physically circumcised, he would have been fine with Yehovah because of his belief. And the uncircumcised by nature who perfects the Torah shall judge you, who notwithstanding letter and circumcision are a transgressor of the Torah. Okay, so someone who's uncircumcised like Abraham was, who was keeping what Yehovah said to do, okay, he would judge somebody who had been given all of the Torah, who was circumcised but wasn't keeping the Torah. Okay? For he is not a Yehudite, a Jew who is one outwardly, neither is circumcision that which is outward in the flesh, but a Yehudite is he who is so inwardly, and circumcision is of the heart, in spirit, not of the letter, whose praise is not from men, but from Elohim. Okay, it's who they are. It's the spirit that they walk in. Okay, it's the faith that they walk in. The circumcision is of the heart. The circumcision being outward in the flesh is only relevant if the heart is circumcised as well. Doesn't mean don't get circumcised outwardly in the flesh. It just means that it's your heart which is important. And if you happen to be uncircumcised like Abraham was when he was called, and you happen to die, you're going to be fine. Abraham was the father to show us, was the father of circumcision. Paul describes him as to show us who are yet uncircumcised, yet walk in faith, what we are to do. Isaiah 52 verse 1 tells us something very interesting about the millennium. It says, "Awake, awake, put on your strength, O Zion, put on your garments of splendor, O Jerusalem, the set-apart city, for no more do the uncircumcised and unclean come into you." Okay, so this is in the millennial kingdom. Nobody who is uncircumcised will enter into Jerusalem. In Ezekiel 44, 5-9, it says, "And Yehovah said to me, Son of man, set your heart and see with your eyes and with your ears all that I say to you concerning the laws of the house of Yehovah and all its Torot." Okay, Torah is law, Torot, the plural, laws. "And you shall set your heart to the entrance of the house with all the exits of the set-apart place, and shall say to the rebellious to the house of Yisrael, Thus said the Master Yehovah, O house of Yisrael, enough of these abominations, enough of all these abominations of yours, that you brought in sons of a foreigner, uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my set-apart place to profane it." So it's always been a problem to be uncircumcised in heart. It's not a new thing that now we're circumcised in heart. We don't have to be circumcised in flesh. If you're circumcised in the heart, when Yehovah calls you, you will become circumcised in flesh because you know that it's what pleases him. That you brought near my food, the fat and the blood, and you broke my covenant because of all your abominations, and you did not guard the charge of that which is set apart to me, but you have set others to guard the charge of my set apart place to me. Thus said the Master Yehovah, no son, and this is in the millennial kingdom, Ezekiel 40-48 covers in the millennium, no son of a foreigner, uncircumcised in heart or uncircumcised in flesh, comes into my set-apart place, even any son of a foreigner who is among the children of Israel. Nobody comes into the set-apart place unless they're circumcised in heart and in flesh. So we've got two prophecies there that say, in the millennial kingdom, it's not going to be good for you if you're not circumcised in flesh. Deuteronomy 28, 65 to 67 says, and among those nations you are to find no rest, nor have a resting place for the sole of your foot, but there Yehovah has given you a trembling heart and failing eyes and sorrow of soul. Again, he's not just come and gone, boom, there you go, trembling heart. He's put you in a position where that's the consequence. And your life has been hanging in suspense before you, and you have feared day and night and not been certain of your life. In the morning you say, oh, that it were evening, and at the evening you say, oh, that it were morning, because of the fear of your heart with which you fear, and because of the sight which your eyes see. He's going to put you in a position amongst all the Gentiles where life is not certain, where the promise, the shalom that comes from walking in his ways is not there just because you're a Gentile. You've been not walking in his ways. You've been subject to the world. Bring fear into your heart, and the sight of your eyes that you see is the beginning of this circumcision of the heart. It's the beginning of you starting to call all of these things back to mind and beginning to shema him. Verse 7 says, and Yehovah your Elohim shall put all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you. Okay, so it said, look, when you bring all these things back to your mind, then I'm going to bring you back to the land of Israel. Okay, I'll put all these curses on your enemies, and we know that this happens in the end time. We know it because it's prophesied to happen here, but we also know it specifically from the prophecies that we read. Deuteronomy 28, 20 to 24 says, Yehovah sends on you the curse, the confusion, and the rebuke in all that you set your hand to, until you are destroyed, until you perish quickly because of the evil of your doings by which you have forsaken me. Okay, I want you to think of the great tribulation, okay, the great time of testing which is going to come on all of the earth. Think of the things that we know about that, and then think back to the curses that Charlie went over last week. Yehovah makes the plague cling to you until he has consumed you from the land which you're going to possess. Yehovah smites you with wasting disease, with inflammation, with burning and extreme heat, with the sword, with blight, with mildew. Okay? Wasting disease, plagues, smite you with the sword. Matthew 24 verse 7 says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be scarcities of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes in every place. This is the curses being put on our enemies, but it's also the curses being put upon his people who are scattered amongst all the Gentiles. There will be some of them who will be kept in the wilderness. Okay, those of the Church of Philadelphia who are kept from that hour of trial which is coming on the entire earth. But this is going to serve a dual purpose. It's going to be the curses coming upon his people, and perhaps they'll recognize, wait there, these are the curses of Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 are the curses that come on people who don't follow the Torah. Maybe we should be following the Torah, and it'll bring them to repentance, and they'll bring all of those things to mind among the Gentiles wherein they are scattered. But it's also the curses being put on our enemies as well. Revelation 16, 8 to 9 says, and the fourth messenger poured out his bowl on the sun, and it was given to him to burn men with fire. And men were burned with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of Elohim, who possessed authority over all these plagues. It's exactly what is written in Deuteronomy 28 is coming to pass on the nations. Deuteronomy 28 verse 23 says, and your heavens which are over your head shall be bronze, and the earth which is under you iron. Okay, this is a reference to rain. You will not have rain coming from the sky. The earth will be hard because of the lack of rain. And we see this happens in Revelation 11 verse 6. It says, these possess authority, the two witnesses, to shut the heaven, so the heavens are like bronze, so that no rain falls. Exactly the same. Okay, there are things that are not specifically there in prophecy, but we know that they'll come to pass because we're told all of these curses are going to come on your enemies. Deuteronomy 28, 56 to 57 says, the tender and the delicate woman among you who has not tried to set the sole of her foot on the ground because of her delicateness and tenderness, her eye is evil against the husband of her bosom, and against her son, and against her daughter, and against her seed which comes out from between her feet, and her children whom she bears. She eats them in secret for lack of oil in the siege and distress with which your enemy distresses you in all your gates. Okay, so we don't actually have have something in prophecy where it says specifically they're going to be eating their children. Okay, it's not specifically in prophecy, but what we do have in prophecy, what we do have as a historical fulfillment is something that Charlie went over last week. 2 Kings 6:24-29 says, "And after this, it came to be that Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, mustered all his army and went up and besieged Shomeron." Okay, so the curse says that in the siege, they're going to eat their kids. "And there was a great scarcity of food in Shomeron, and see, they besieged it until a donkey's head went at 80 pieces of silver, and 1/4 of a cab of dove droppings for 5 pieces of silver." Okay, I want you to hold on to those things in your head. We've got food being sold at a greatly increased price here. "And it came to be, as the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, 'Help my master, O king.' And he said, 'If Yehovah does not help you, where do I find help for you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress?' And the king said to her, 'What is troubling you?' And she answered, 'This woman said to me, give me your son and let us eat him today, and tomorrow we eat my son. So we cooked my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, give your son and let us eat him. But she has hidden her son.'" Okay, so in this event, we've got people who are under siege, who are buying this food for greatly inflated prices. Then, at the beginning of the next chapter, it says, "And Elisha said, hear the word of Yehovah. Thus said Yehovah, about this time tomorrow, a seah of fine flour for a shekel, and 2 seahs of a barley for a shekel at the gate of Shomeron." And this is very, very reminiscent of something we do see in prophecy. Revelation 5-6 says, "And when he opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd living creature say, 'Come and see.' And I looked and saw a black horse, and he who sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard the voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, 'A quart of wheat for a day's wage, 3 quarts of barley for a day's wage.'" Okay, it's very reminiscent of it, isn't it? Okay, and it's pure speculation, but it makes me wonder, is this the time when those curses come upon our enemies and they're eating their children as well, when food is of a ridiculous price? Deuteronomy 28:26 says, "And your carcasses shall be for food for all the birds of the heavens and the birds of the earth." Okay, your carcasses will be for food. This also comes upon our enemies. In Ezekiel 39:17-18, it says, "And you, son of man, thus said the Master Yehovah, speak to every sort of bird and to every beast of the field." Okay, what did the curse say? Shall be food for all the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the earth. Okay, "Assemble yourselves, come, gather from all around to my offering which I am sacrificing for you, a great offering on the mountains of Israel, and you shall eat flesh and drink blood. Eat the flesh of the mighty, drink the blood of the princes of the earth, of rams, of lambs, of goats and bulls, all of them fatlings of Bashan." Okay, so they're eating the flesh. It's the birds and the beasts eating their flesh. Did it say, "Your carcasses shall be as food for all the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the earth"? So it's prophesied all of this will come upon our enemies, and we can see it right there in prophecy happening. Deuteronomy 28:27 says, "Yehovah shall smite you with the boils of Mitzrayim, with tumors, with the scab, and with the itch, from which you are unable to be healed." Revelation 16:2, it says, "The first went and poured out his bowl on the earth, and an evil and wicked sore came upon men." Deuteronomy 28:10-14 tells us how it should be, however. It says, "All the peoples of the earth shall see that the name of Yehovah is called upon you." Okay, think about this when they're gathered back to the land of Israel, when all the curses are coming upon all of their enemies. All the peoples of the earth shall see that the name of Yehovah is called upon you, and they shall be afraid of you. And Yehovah shall make you to have plenty of what is good in the fruit of your body, in the fruit of your livestock, in the fruit of your ground, in the land of which Yehovah swore to your fathers to give you. Yehovah opens to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. And you shall lend to many nations, but you do not borrow. And Yehovah shall make you the head and not the tail, and you shall be only on top and not beneath, if you obey the commands of Yehovah. What does it say? When you shema the commands of Yehovah, going to gather you back to the land. He's going to make the enemy under a curse. And do not turn aside from any of the words which I am commanding you today, right or left, to go after other gods to serve them. Okay, so again, we'll come back to I can't do the command. Yes, you can. You just don't go to the left, you don't go to the right to go after the idol that's in your heart, to serve the idol in your heart. Make sure that what's in your heart that you're serving is Yehovah. Okay, in the third part, we're going to come back and see what it is for the word to be written on our hearts. And we're also going to have a little bit of a look at the idea of being adulterous towards Yehovah. We'll come back in a little bit. Okay, we're on. Okay, so verse 8 says, and you have turned back and obeyed the voice of Yehovah and done all his commands which I command you today. Okay, so this follows where it says, Yehovah has circumcised your heart, and you've turned back and obeyed the voice, done all his commands which I command you today. And that's when he takes his people back to the land, when they are all hearkening to his voice, not just hearing his words and then going so far and going astray into nonsense. They're actually hearing his words and obeying them. We've come to a point in the Torah movement where everybody has now returned to the idea that they should be following Torah. The problem is they've all got all sorts of idols in their hearts that they've still not let go of. Verse 9 says, and Yehovah your Elohim shall make you have excess in all the work of your hand, in the fruit of your body, in the fruit of your livestock, in the fruit of your ground for good. For Yehovah turns back to rejoice over you for good, as he rejoiced over your fathers. We were talking about this the other day. Me and Jeff were talking about it. The idea that in Christianity there's all of this idea of kind of like, oh, you've got to be a good steward of your finances and you can't waste anything, and if anything goes to waste, that's not being a good steward. I'm not saying that being a bad steward of your finances is a good thing, but Yehovah's got a very different perspective on things. He says that when he blesses us, he will bless us so much that we'll have to throw away the old stuff. Okay, he says that elsewhere. And here he says he will make you to have excess. Because to him, he's not limited by anything. He's not like, oh, I don't know if you're not, saving up your pennies there, I'm not sure I'll be able to allow you to afford this. No, Yehovah just blesses, and he blesses, and he's the source of abundance. And he'll cause us to throw away what's old when he turns back to us. If you obey the voice of Yehovah your Elohim to cherish his commands and his laws which are written in this book of the Torah, if you turn back to Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart and all your soul. And this is the sort of thing that's so mysterious to so many people in Christianity. The idea of turning back to him with all their heart and all their soul, everything that is them. People go to church week in, week out, and they learn about who Yehovah is, but they never come to a point where they have submitted to him. Okay, submission is something very, very different. Turning to him with all of your heart and all of your soul to the point where you couldn't do something else. It's not, I can't keep that command. It's, I can't not keep that command. His Torah is written in my heart. If there's something that you love, there's no way that you would be torn away from doing it. The only thing that could tear you away from doing it is if you love something else that bit more. If you value something else that bit more. And that shows where your heart is at. Verse 11 says, for this command which I am commanding you today, it's not too hard for you, nor is it far off. There's none of the commands that are too hard. Nobody can ever say, I can't do that command. The command's not too hard, nor is it far off. It's not in the heavens to say, who shall ascend into the heavens for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it so that we do it. Nobody has to cause you to hear it so that you do it apart from you. Okay, you hear the word and you do it. It's all in the realm of you. It's not too hard to do. Not if you've turned with all your heart and all your soul. Nor is it beyond the sea to say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it so that we do it. This is what people want, isn't it? They want to be caused to do something. Oh yeah, I've got all this sin in my life, but Yehovah's going to do something in me. He's going to take this sin away from me. No, the word's to be written on your heart. You have to cherish to do it. Completely different attitude of mind. When you're given the opportunity to do the word, you cherish the opportunity to do it. You treasure the word up within your heart. For the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart to do it. If it's in your mouth and it's in your heart, you are going to do it, and it won't be too hard for you. If it's not in your mouth and in your heart, it's going to be too hard. You're going to be unable to do it. You'll be one of the ones that Yeshua said, they'll seek to enter in, but they shall not be able. Job 22:22 says, please accept the Torah from his mouth and lay up his words in your heart. To accept the Torah from his mouth, to submit to the Torah. Lay up his words in your heart. The mouth of the righteous speaks wisdom, and his tongue talks of judgment. The Torah of his Elohim is in his heart. Okay, what does that cause? His steps do not slide. It's not, I'm sinning sometimes and it's a bit of a problem. No, if the word is in your heart, your steps do not slide, because to not do the word is so abhorrent to you. Psalm 40 verse 8, I've delighted to do your pleasure. Very different mindset to, I think that I probably should do your pleasure, and if I can convince myself in the morning to do your pleasure, then I'll do it. No, I've delighted to do your pleasure, O my Elohim, and your Torah is within my heart. Make me understand that I might observe your Torah and cherish it with all my heart. My son, do not forget my Torah. Let your heart watch over my commands. For length of days and long life and peace they add to you. Let not kindness and truth forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Matthew 13:19 tells us something very interesting about the word and the heart. It says, when anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. So the parable of the sower, the word when it is sown into people's hearts. Okay, it can be sown by the wayside, and that's when the wicked one comes and snatches away what was in the heart. Okay, it can be sown on rocky ground as well, a rocky heart. Think of a stony heart. And when the trials come, when the tests come as to whether or not you'll keep the word, okay, you spring up for a while and you believe the word and you receive it with joy, but then because of the tests, when they come, you fall away. A thorny heart, the word is sown in thorny ground. That's your heart. That's where, when the word is sown, you receive it with joy, you spring up for a while, but then all of the cares of the world come in and they steal what was sown and it perishes. Okay, and then there's good ground, someone whose heart it is written on. When the word is sown and it lands on good ground and a good heart, that brings forth fruit. Proverbs 23:26 says, my son, give me your heart and let your eyes watch my ways. Okay, this is what Yehovah wants. He wants to come into covenant with people. He wants them to be betrothed to him, to walk in his ways, and to be a set apart people unto him, to represent him, because they've given him their hearts. Proverbs 2:1-5 says, my son, if you accept my words and treasure up my commands within you. Okay, and someone who accepts their words and treasures up the commands within them is somebody on whose heart is written the law. When they hear the law, they think, that's amazing. Of course I'm going to do that. Of course not, I don't know, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. Have a bit of a think about it and go astray. That's not somebody in whose heart the law is written. Okay, they're not somebody who knows Yehovah, who knows his voice when they hear it. So that you make your ear attend to wisdom, incline your heart to understanding. For if you cry for discernment, lift up your voice for understanding. If you seek her as silver and search for her as hidden treasures, then you would understand the fear of Yehovah. Okay, somebody who is seeking and searching for these things because it's in their heart, because they hear them and they just want more of it. They want more of his wisdom because it's in their heart. It's not somebody who when they come across these things, they go after the doctrine of gall and wormwood and bitterness. They put aside righteousness and judgment, and instead they've gone after something else which will kind of allow them to have peace even though they walk in the stubbornness of their own heart, because they will not accept his words. They will not submit to his words once and for all and just do his word because he said to do it, because they're unable to do it. And they're unable to do it because it's not in their hearts to do it. Psalm 119 verse 11, I have treasured up your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. My son, cherish my words and treasure up my commands. Okay, we looked at when we translate the word Shema, to keep, to guard, to protect. Cherish is the most appropriate translation in many cases, and here we see it used with another word, to treasure up. Okay, when we've seen this word to treasure up, it's a different word from Shema, but it's used here to mean the same thing, to cherish his words and treasure up his commands within you. Cherish my commands and live, and my Torah as the apple of your eye. Okay, it's in your heart to do it. You love it. It's the apple of your eye. It's the most important thing. There's no, I can't do that command, I can't do this command, because it's the apple of your eye. There's nothing that could tear you away from doing it. He who is born of Elohim does not sin. He's unable to sin. The law is written in his heart. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the table of your heart, the tablet of your heart. Deuteronomy 6:6-8, after it said, Shema, Shema, and you will love Yehovah. Just hear it and obey it. Okay, that very simple process of hearing what the word says and obeying it causes you to love Yehovah. He can't explain it all to you before you do it. But as you start to do it, then he starts to give you understanding, because you've had that very simple Shema response of, I've heard it, Yehovah has said it, so I'll do it. And then you begin to understand those things. Okay, and then he says, and these words I'm commanding you today have been in your heart. When you Shema them, then you begin to understand them, and you begin to love Yehovah with all your heart and all your soul. These words I'm commanding you today have been in your heart, and you have impressed them upon your children, and have spoken of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down and when you rise up, and have bound them as a sign on your hand, and they've been as frontlets between your eyes. What you do and what you think, writing them on your hand, writing them on your forehead, writing them on your heart. Okay, they're all idioms for what you do, what you think. Isaiah 51 verse 7 says, listen to me, you who know righteousness, a people in whose heart is my Torah. Ephesians 3:14-17 says, for this reason I bow my knees to the Father of our Master Yeshua Messiah, from whom all fatherhood in the heavens and earth is named, in order that he might give you, according to the riches of his esteem by power, to be strengthened in the inner man through his Spirit, that the Messiah, the Word, might dwell in your hearts through belief, having become rooted and grounded in love. Okay? It's all about love. It's all about coming into covenant, making him your husband. His ways, who he is written in your heart, being drawn to that. Romans 2:14-15 tells us something interesting. It says, for when Gentiles who do not have the Torah by nature do what is in the Torah, although not having the Torah, they're a Torah to themselves. Okay, so they don't have the Torah. But when just by nature they do the things that are written in the Torah because they recognize that they're good, they govern themselves. And they govern themselves by their conscience, as we'll see, who show the work of the Torah written in their hearts, who show that they love those things that are in the Torah, that they desire to do those things. Because when they're given a situation where they could take advantage from breaking the Torah, okay, they don't do that because they know that it's wrong to do that. They govern themselves, okay, and they show by that the Torah is written in their hearts. Not all of the Torah, but those aspects of the Torah that they're doing, they're written in their hearts. Their conscience also bearing witness. That's where your conscience is, where your spirit is. We looked at cleanness in conscience and in spirit. It's in your heart, okay. They show that they cherish those things when they do them. bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts, accusing or even excusing them before God in the day when he shall judge the secrets of men. Okay? Their thoughts will either accuse them because they will show, that's not where my heart is. That's not what I cherish. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not what I held of ultimate value above doing whatever was in transgression. Okay? Romans 10:5-8. For Moshe writes about the righteousness which is of the Torah. The man who does these shall live by them. And the righteousness of belief speaks in this way. Okay, so how does the righteousness of belief speak? Do not say in your heart, who shall ascend into the heavens? This is exactly what we just read in Deuteronomy 30. That is to bring Messiah down. Or who shall descend into the abyss? That is to bring Messiah up from the dead. To cause us to hear it and do it is what Deuteronomy says. We don't need Messiah to come down to cause us to hear us and do it. It should be in our mouth and in our heart. That's what's going to cause us to do it. That's the word of belief. But what does it say? What does Deuteronomy say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That's the word of belief which we're proclaiming. That's why I was talking about before about the two covenants. And I was saying, look, if I say that you must sincerely desire to do what is pleasing, okay, the word is in your mouth and in your heart to do it. That's what's going to save you. That's the word of faith. Okay, the actual list of things to do, that's not going to save you. As it's not in your mouth and in your heart, whether you do it or you don't do it. Jeremiah 17:1 shows us as well that it's not just the Torah that's written on our hearts, it's whatever is our desire. That is what it is to have something written in your heart. The sin of Yehudah is written with a pen of iron, engraved with the point of a diamond on the tablet of their heart. That's what's in their hearts to do. Sin is actually in their hearts. That's the idol that they hold in their hearts. The law's not in their hearts. Okay, think again. The idols that are in your life. What is actually written in your heart? Be honest with yourself. What is actually written in your heart? What do you actually value above all things? Is it the word? Are you just deceiving yourself? Ezekiel 14:3-6 says, Son of man, these men have set up idols in their hearts. Not just about the idols of wood and stone that they were going. That's one form of idol that was no good for them. But these men have set up idols in their hearts and have put the stumbling block of their iniquity before their face. Should I let them inquire of me at all? Therefore speak to them, and you shall say to them, Thus says the Master Yehovah, every one of the house of Israel who sets up idols in his heart, puts the stumbling block of iniquity before his face, and shall come to the prophet, I Yehovah shall answer him who comes according to his many idols, in order to lay hold of the house of Israel by their heart. This is why he does these things. This is why the blessings and the curses came upon the people, in order to lay hold of them upon their heart, to circumcise their heart. For they have become estranged from me by their idols, all of them. Okay? If we have in our hearts anything that we would disobey the word of Elohim because of, we've become estranged from Elohim by that thing that you're committing adultery with. You've not given your heart to Yehovah, you've given your heart to that thing, and he sees it and he's jealous and he's angry. Therefore say to the house of Israel, Thus said the Master Yehovah, repent and turn back from your idols, turn back your faces from all your abominations. Do you not know that to whom you present yourselves servants for obedience, you are servants of the one whom you obey? No matter what you say with your mouth, no matter what you've deluded yourself into thinking that you're actually after, if you choose something else, that's what the actual situation is. That's what you're actually serving. And there is no kind of justification for it. There's going to be no arguing with Yehovah. All he's going to say is, I gave you the choice. It was me or this thing. What did you choose? You chose that thing. Okay, you've committed adultery against me with this thing. That's the idol that's in your heart. And we're not going to be able to say anything if that's what we've done. Psalm 78, 57 to 60 says, but they turned back and acted treacherously like their fathers. They twisted like a treacherous bow, for they enraged him with their high places, with their idols, and they moved him to jealousy with their carved images. When Elohim heard this, he was wroth and greatly despised Israel. And he left the dwelling place of Shiloh, the tent which he had set up among men. This is when he leaves the tabernacle. Okay, he came to dwell in the tabernacle. If you want to know when he left it, it was at this point. Psalm 78 is the history of Israel up until King David. Ezekiel 6 verse 9 says, and those of you who escape shall remember me among the Gentiles where they have been taken captive, because I have been broken by their adulterous heart, which is turned away from me, and by their eyes which hoard after their idols. Again, striking image of people going and watching television and watching sin. Yehovah's broken by the fact that you prefer that over him. He's broken by it, by your eyes which have whored after your idols. Ezekiel 16, 14 to 19 says, and your name went out among the nations because of your loveliness, for it was perfect by my splendor which I had put on you, declares the Master Yehovah. But you trusted in your own loveliness and whored because of your name, and poured out your whorings on everyone passing by who would have it. And you took some of your garments and made multicolored high places for yourself, and whored on them, which should not have come about, nor shall it be. And you might not have some high place in your garden, but you know whether you've got idols in your heart which you actually cherish. And you took your splendid adornments of my gold and my silver that I gave you, and made for yourselves images of a male, and whored with them. And you took your embroidered garments and covered them, and you set my oil and my incense before them. And my food which I gave you, fine flour and oil and honey which I fed you, you set it before them as sweet incense, and so it was, declares the Master Yehovah. And I've used the image before that Yehovah is holding everything together by the power of his word. He's holding together all those vapors, all those idols which men go and sin against him with. He says, all of these which I've given you, you've used this to sin against me. Jeremiah 3 says, and Yehovah said to me in the days of Yoshiyahu the king, have you seen what backsliding Israel has done? She has gone up on every high mountain and under every green tree, and there committed whoring. And after she had done all these, I said, return to me. But she did not return, and her treacherous sister Yehudah saw it. And I saw that for all the causes for which backsliding Israel had committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Yehudah did not fear, but went and committed whoring too. So Yehudah had the benefit of seeing what happened to Israel. They saw Israel get cast out because of their adultery. And what did they do? Did they repent? They didn't repent. They went and did exactly the same thing. And this is exactly what his people are doing today. They've got the benefit of seeing in his word what happens when people go astray, that they will be divorced. But do they fear? Do they hear and fear? No, they go and do exactly the same thing. And it came to be through her frivolous whoring that she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and wood, or whatever the idol is in your heart. And yet for all this, her treacherous sister Yehudah has not turned to me with all her heart, but falsely, declares Yehovah. Because this is what people do. I've turned to Yehovah. They haven't turned to him at all. They turned not with all their heart, but falsely to him. They've said that they have turned to him, but not really. Yehovah said to me, backsliding Yisrael has shown herself more righteous than treacherous Yehudah. Why? Why was she more righteous than Judah? Because she went and she sinned and she was scattered among all the nations. But Judah saw it and then she went and whored anyway. Okay, so Israel's actually more righteous than Judah because Judah didn't repent. Go and proclaim these words towards the north and say, return, O backsliding Yisrael, declares Yehovah. I shall not look on you in displeasure, for I am kind, declares Yehovah. I do not bear a grudge forever. Only acknowledge your iniquity, because you have transgressed against Yehovah your Elohim, scattered your ways to strangers under every green tree, and have not obeyed my voice, declares Yehovah. This is what he says. This is what we were reading in Deuteronomy 30, where he scatters his people among all the nations, and then they call all these words back to their heart. They acknowledge their iniquity before him. They acknowledge that he's turned his face from them, and they repent and they do his words. But we're in the same position. If we're in the position where we've seen all these things happen, we know what he'll do. We know what the curses are for disobedience. And yet we say things like, I can't do that commandment. I won't do that commandment. I will serve an idol rather than Elohim. Okay? Backsliding Israel and backsliding Judah have shown themselves more righteous than us. Hosea 10, 1-2 says, Yisrael is a degenerate vine. He brings forth fruit for himself. As his fruit increased, he increased the altars. And the better his land, the better they made the pillars. Okay, so the more that they were blessed, the more they went after their idols. It's more comfortable for them, I imagine. Their heart, and it all comes down to this again, their heart has been divided. Now they are guilty. He breaks down their altars. He destroys their pillars. Deuteronomy 29:18, again, if we go back to the verse we were reading before, they saw all the abominations of the Gentiles, so that there wasn't a man or woman, clan or tribe whose heart turns away from Yehovah. Okay, what was their problem? Their heart has been divided. It turned away from Yehovah towards their idols. To go and serve the gods of these nations, whatever those idols are, lest there should be among you a root bearing gall or wormwood. Be careful. Be careful that you don't go after these idols, because then you are a root among his people of gall and wormwood. Joshua 24:19-23 says, Then Yehoshua said to the people, You are not able to serve Yehovah, for he is a set-apart Elohim, a jealous Ale is he. He does not bear with your transgression and with your sins. When you forsake Yehovah and have served the gods of a stranger, then he has turned back and done you evil and consumed you after he's been good to you. And the people said to Yehoshua, No, but we do serve Yehovah. And Yehoshua said to the people, You are witnesses against yourselves that you've chosen Yehovah for yourselves to serve him. And they said, Witnesses. Okay, again, Torah movement today. We do serve Yehovah. By saying that, they're just witnesses against themselves. They've said that they're going to serve Yehovah. They know what serving Yehovah is, but I can't do that command. I can't do this command. Now put away the gods of the stranger which are in your midst and in your heart to Yehovah, and incline your heart, to Yehovah Elohim of Yisrael. It could be said to the Torah movement today, we do serve Yehovah. You don't understand, by saying that you're witnesses against yourselves. If that's true, put away those idols from out of your heart. Incline your heart to Yehovah. Verse 15 of the Torah portion says, See, I have set before you today life and good and death and evil. In that I am commanding you today to love Yehovah your Elohim, to walk in his ways, to cherish his commands and his laws and his judgments. And you have lived and increased, and Yehovah your Elohim has blessed you in the land which you go to possess. You've done this. It's been in your heart. You've loved Yehovah. You've walked in his ways. You've cherished his commands. You've done it by faith. You've done it out of a sincere desire to please him. Okay, if that's true, you've lived and increased, and Yehovah your Elohim has blessed you. But if your heart turns away, and what was written in your heart is not the Torah, or your heart's been divided and you've got other things written in your heart, and you do not obey and have been driven away, and have been driven away and have bowed down to other gods and served them, the idols of your heart, I have declared to you today, you do certainly perish. You do not prolong your days in the land which you are passing over the Jordan to enter and possess. It's that clear cut that he's spoken of it from outside of time. If your heart is for Yehovah, you've got his Torah written on your heart, he's already blessed you in the land. You've already gone in and increased. However, if your heart's been drawn away to your nonsense idols, you do certainly perish. You don't prolong your days in the land. Deuteronomy 8:2-3. You have remembered that Yehovah your Elohim led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness. Okay, everything that happened to them, everything that happens to us throughout our lives, Yehovah has led us through all of those things for specific reasons. To humble you, prove you, to know what is in your heart, whether you cherish his commands or not. These things come up as tests. The things that people say, I can't do that. I can't do that command. They come up as tests to know what's in your heart. Is the Torah what's in your heart? Or are they your idols? He humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna. Okay? So people will say, I can't keep the Shabbat. Okay, I need to be able to feed my family. I need to be able to do this. I need to get my provision for me. Maybe he's letting you suffer hunger. And maybe he'll feed you with manna. Maybe the provision will be supernatural. Okay? But he does it to know what's in your heart. Whether you could not sin against Elohim, or whether it was a case of, I can't do that. Many shall try to enter in and they're not going to be able. Everyone who says, I can't do that command, they're not able. They're admitting it freely with their mouths. I have called the heavens and the earth as witnesses today against you. I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse, and you have chosen life, so that you live, both you and your seed, to love Yehovah your Elohim, to obey his voice and to cling to him. For he is your life and the length of your days, to dwell in the land which Yehovah swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov, to give them. Okay, these are the people, the ones that love Yehovah, the ones that obey his voice, the ones that cling to them, and the ones who can say, Yehovah is my life, not Yehovah fits into my life when I let him. When I don't say, oh, I can't do that. I can't do this. Yehovah is your life. You've clung to him. His Torah is within your heart. You've obeyed his voice and you have loved him. Then you've entered into the land. Simple choice. Same choice that was given to them back then is given to you all today. Life and good, death and evil. Shall we pray? Father, I thank you for who you are. I thank you that you're righteous and you're just and that you've called us to be like you. I thank you that you make it so clear in your word for us what we're to do, what you expect of us, and the amazing gifts that you give us if we just bow the knee to you, submit to you. I pray that anyone hearing this who is not in this position, that you will convict them by your Spirit and that you will give them the opportunity to turn to you before they turn their back to you. Thank you for all of the opportunities that you give us to speak to people and to draw them back to life away from death. Thank you for the amazing gifts that you give us, for your word. Thank you for the Shabbat that you've given to us. Father, I'm sorry that there are people who will not submit to you, will not bow the knee to you. I'm sorry for the sin that our forefathers have done. Please keep us on the path, Father. Thank you. Amen.